All right, here we are at my and Kate's humble abode. And why don't you guys introduce yourselves?
I'm Greg Kendall. I'm the owner of Green Energy Gains. We are a partner with the Mass Save program, providing no-cost home energy assessments and weatherization work.
My name is Garrett Hodgson. I do the assessments for the Mass Save program, so I'm the one that is initially showing up to your house, checking everything out top to bottom to see where you can potentially save money and where the Mass Save program can help you with that.
And why do we consider people bananas not to take advantage of this?
Yeah, there's a couple of reasons. One, we are already paying for it through your utility program. So your National Grid or Eversource bill, there is an energy efficiency charge that you pay every single month that pays for this program. So as we say, it's no cost. You are paying into it to pay for the program, so we really encourage everyone to take advantage of it because you're already paying for it essentially, and you're going to save money.
And when you say you're paying for it, every person that has a National Grid bill, there is a line item on that bill, the energy efficiency charge, and that is what pays for these programs, whether you take advantage of them or not. And that's why we always say you're crazy not to take advantage of them.
Exactly.
Correct. Yep.
So, all right, do you want to give us a little rundown of what you expect to find in our house?
So 1970s ranch like this is a pretty standard house you're going to see throughout Massachusetts and basically any town. Based on building history, before I even go inside, I'm going to have a pretty good idea of areas where this house could potentially save some money. Generally, that's going to be in the form of insulation upgrades. That's something that the Mass Save program really focuses on. It's the best subsidy, the best discounts that the program offers because it's the most cost-effective thing to do to a home in order to make it more efficient.
You said a lot of these homes, the payback is literally 2 years.
Yeah, 2 to 3 years is what you aim for on a lot of this stuff. After a program covered 75% discount, paying a few $100s rather than a few $1,000s to fully insulate your attic can easily save you a few $100s a year. So typically customers are finding that within 2-3 years they've saved as much as they've spent with all these discounts.
And another note on that, having these energy audits and saving this money also opens the doors for other rebates within the program. So dryers, induction stove tops, heat pumps. If you want to remove your fossil fuel heating system and go to electric heat pumps, there's a $10,000 rebate to do so. And now with the federal tax credits, you're getting an additional $2,000 on that. So it's really compelling to move off of fossil fuels and into moving to electric heat pumps.
There you go. All right. Well, we'll stop it right there, and we'll check in the house and we'll go through.
Yeah.
Thanks,
Sounds
guys.
good.
Let's go.
So one of the first things that I like to kind of focus on into a house would be the combustion safety testing. This is something that we do at essentially every single house. If there's a fossil fuel source for heating or hot water, we need to make sure that number one, the exhaust is properly moving up and out of the house, either through the chimney or through a sidewall, or we need to make sure that it's moving out at an appropriate rate. This test is also a good indicator of how tight your house is. Essentially, we are going to be sucking as much air out of the house as possible using dryers, bathroom fans, kitchen fans. And you can get a reading thanks to this meter on how much air is being moved out of the house. And then that can be basically interpreted as how airtight or how leaky the house is. If you find a lot of air movement when you turn on these sort of appliances, it's like you're shooting yourself in the foot every time you do a load of laundry, because when you're drying the clothes, it's also sucking cold air into your house, decreasing your efficiency.
So so once you do the test, you have a reading and you'll have a baseline of where
we
you're at.
establish a baseline first, and then we will go through the house, turn everything on in order to create what's referred to as the worst case depressurization of the house. When we have the difference between those two numbers, it's again a good indicator of both how tight the house is and how well the heating systems and hot water heaters are going to be able to move their exhaust up and out of the house like they're supposed to.
Perfect. Let's get to it.
Cool. All right. So I'm initially going to take this reading, the depressurization reading, to see what level the house is at currently. This meter is giving me a barely negative pressure differential, which means as heat is rising up and out of your house, there is barely some, but there is still some air infiltrating in from down low. Hot rises and it creates a vacuum in your house, so the pressure differential between your house upstairs and downstairs is what causes these numbers to be what they are. Now, when we turn on the dryer and the bathroom fans and the kitchen fan, we'll find that that number becomes even more negative as those fans are pulling even more air into the house through cracks like around doors and down in the foundation and whatnot. Now let's go quickly turn on the bathroom fans, the kitchen fan, dryer, wherever that lives, probably upstairs, and then we'll come back and see what number we have different.
All right.
So now that we've had all of the bathroom fans, the dryer, the big kitchen exhaust fan turned on, I'm looking to see the difference between the pressure of air coming in through a penetration like through a basement door or something like that. To be expected, there is slightly more air being pulled through these seams now that all of these exhaust fans are running. That's what you would expect. But the difference in pressure is actually not very large for this house, which to me indicates that a lot of air sealing has been performed. There's not a lot of natural heat loss through this house, and the house is generally very tight with things like new windows, door weather stripping, air sealing work. All of those are going to come into play in order to prevent a large pressure difference between natural and worst case, which is what we're testing for here.
All right.
So another big aspect of the Mass Save program is going to be checking around for insulation. As you can see here, the infrared camera gives a very nice and clear picture of the inside of your exterior walls. You can see the framing is cold and the bays in between the framing is warm. That's exactly what you would expect to see for an insulated house. So I can tell you that this house has insulation existing without even poking any holes into the walls. You will find on older houses, older Victorians, anything built generally 1950s or earlier, there's a chance that there's no insulation in your exterior walls and there's just a 4-inch hollow space. That's a really big issue that the Mass Save program works to correct for customers. Whether I find it with the infrared camera or I find it by drilling a pinky-sized test hole in a closet somewhere through your house, we can enter into wall cavities without having to gut your walls down to the studs and retrofit some additional insulation into those cavities without having to tear your house apart. Generally, all that happens from the outside of the house, so the only thing you're going to notice is some banging while the work is getting done, but we don't have to be inside disturbing your walls or messing up the inside of your house in order to effectively insulate exterior walls in older houses.
So do you use the gun as well around windows, or is there a different test for leaky windows?
Windows, we're typically looking to qualify based on if they're single pane existing or if they're double pane existing. A lot of times, older double pane windows will be just as bad, if not worse, than an old original single pane window would be in this house. But the infrared camera is always going to show cold around windows because windows are always colder than a wall surface would be. When you upgrade to triple pane windows, you will see that dark blue turn to something a little bit warmer color on the infrared camera. But the glass itself, I don't care too much about on the scan. What I do care about is looking around the perimeter of the glass. If you see any really dark blues down at the bases or where the handles are, or even just right around the framing, it can indicate that you have an older window that's having air infiltrate either in the window or into the walls around the window if it wasn't installed properly. These windows here look to be okay. I can tell that they are single pane windows existing, but they also have a storm window built on them. So that's better than just a single pane window, but it still does qualify for a Mass Save 7-year interest-free loan, and you would receive rebates per window for upgrading to a higher efficiency type of window. The infrared camera is also good for looking around doors and assessing the seams. As you can see, this door here, right at the seams, there's not too much blue, indicating not too much heat loss. But when you do look down at the bottom, you can see the cold air is coming in through those two bottom cracks. Easy to identify and also easy to fix. The Mass Save program, as part of insulation work, will come and weather strip your doors in your house for no cost as well.
No cost.
No cost. Yep. Weather stripping comes at 100% discount for customers.
Let's go.
So here I want to take a look up in this attic space of this 1970s ranch. Now, first indicator I can tell this house was actually already insulated about 2-3 years ago. So you can see they did install this nice attic stair cover. It velcros down nice and tight to prevent heat loss and adds insulation above your attic stairs. But I'm going to poke my head up and see and make sure that all the existing insulation is still up to today's standards.
So we should mention, so that's styrofoam insulation, right?
Foam board, yeah.
Foam board. But if you just have a regular old, and everybody pretty much has these attic pull down.
Yep.
What is that? A 1/4 inch or
If that.
a 1/4 inch of plywood? That probably the RF or whatever. What do you?
The R value of an uninsulated attic stair is effectively 0. When you add this 2-inch rigid foam board, you're getting up closer to R7, but you're also adding a lot of air sealing to it. Insulation is only as effective as the air sealing that goes around with it, so you can properly insulate a house as much as you can, but if you don't take care of things like attic stair cover penetrations, all of that insulation is going to be bypassed as air moves through the easy cracks and crannies around things like attic stairs.
There you go.
So now that we're up in the attic space, again, this house has already been through the Mass Save program, so this is a really good example of what your attic might look like after you get discounted insulation installed. Over on the sides, you can see there's a lot of blown cellulose. That's a ground up recycled newspaper that's treated with a fire retardant chemical. That has the same insulation value as your classic fiberglass batting that you would see in new construction houses. This blown cellulose material does a really good job of falling into all the nooks and crannies, filling the available space, and providing proper insulation R value to an attic where applicable. You can also see down around the hatch, there is this foam existing. Now this is air sealing foam. This is a really important part of the Mass Save program. So important that actually all air sealing work with this foam is going to be 100% paid for by the Mass Save program. If you're on a budget and you don't want to afford to put further insulation in your house, you can sign up for an air sealing only job, which will get Mass Save out to your home to perform some of the upgrades for $0 cost to you up front. This air sealing foam around the hatch is also going to exist under the flooring and in areas where walls meet ceilings. It's going to be around recessed lights, and it's also going to be around the chimney in order to prevent heat loss through all of these invisible avenues and channels that live inside of your walls and framing.
We should also mention if you have, if you've had an energy audit done previously, you can get this done once every 2 years.
Correct. So every 2 years, you're eligible to perform another energy assessment. If your attic looks like this, we're not going to be recommending any more insulation work. But if you had your attic insulated 5, 10 plus years ago, you may find that the settling that has occurred over time or disturbing the insulation, either the previous homeowner or things got moved around, there may still be opportunity for further insulation that the program would be able to pay for and sponsor for you. It's always best to have an energy assessment because someone like me will be able to come into your house and instantly tell you whether or not you would be able to benefit and qualify from additional Mass Save insulation help.
Cool.
So Mass Save, if we're going to be insulating an attic space, we have to make sure that everything in the area is brought up to code during the insulation work. You can see over here, this is a newly installed bathroom fan hose that vents out properly through the roof. It is surprisingly common to find in older homes built in the 80s or before that bathroom fans are left unventilated, which is just pumping moisture into your attic and causing mold. Whenever we come across a situation like this, part of the insulation work order and being covered at a 75% discount, we will cut the hole in your roof for you in order to properly vent a bathroom fan out to the exterior. We also take into account the existing ventilation for an attic. It's important for an attic to have both combination of high and low ventilation, meaning, in this case, a ridge vent up high and a gable end vent down at the very end. This allows air to flow into the attic space, keeping it cooler during the summer, but also keeping it cooler and drier during the winter. This will help prevent mold buildup, will also help prevent ice dams on your roof. If you have excessive heat loss without ventilation, you might have to start worrying about ice dams ruining your roof and your gutters. So just another reason to have mass save out. If we're going to insulate your attic, we're going to bring other things up to code as well. So it's an overall very large improvement for the home.